it was the darling of the UK tech scene.
So obviously one of the main points about Pouch is that you went on Dragon's Den.
I did.
And you didn't just go on, you got all 5 dragons
Yes.
on board, which is quite a big achievement.
We were absolutely press whores.
How do you get your first few in stores?
Our journey was different. We were very fortunate in that everyone could use Pouch because everyone buys online. I truly believe in getting a co-founder. Johnny and I were one of those friends that just talked about business all the time. And one of those developers was a guy called Vic. And when we met him, he was like, firstly, you can't afford me.
I want to jump into your exit.
I'm the loneliest man in the world. They sold to PayPal in 2019 for $4.5 billion. We didn't. Had we done that experimentation early on, we would have saved most of our seed money. We said no to every venture capitalist that was after us. So
risky game.
Guys, welcome to the Ground Floor podcast. Our guest today is an extremely exciting one and quite a personal one to me. He's an entrepreneur and was one of the co-founders of Pouch, a company that was the second company ever to get all 5 offers on Dragon's Den, and is currently the co-founder and CFO of London Reporting House. COO of London Reporting House.
Not a problem.
We're going to leave that in. Welcome to the studio, my friend and my old boss, Ben Corrigan.
Thank you very much.
Of course, I forgot about those days when you used to work with Ben.
Yeah.
Oh, God, okay.
Yeah.
Many moons ago. I'm sure we'll get to that.
When was that?
That was 2016.
2017.
2017. Yeah, 2017.
Yeah, okay.
So that was a long time ago. So Ben, thanks for being here, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. Good to be here.
No worries. So
Great to be here.
yeah, it's a great spot we've got. So just for everyone listening who might not know about you, just give like a quick kind of couple of minutes of like what you do, who you are, and what you did.
Yeah, sure. So currently I'm the co-founder and COO of a company called London Reporting House. I was just explaining to you guys before we turn the cameras on, it's kind of a complicated business to get into at dinner parties or barbecues because it's like a very niche part of the financial markets. We operate in what's called the repo markets, which no one's ever heard of. Even though actually the repo market's the largest market in all financial services by volume. So around 13.5 trillion euros a week are transacted.
Oh, wow.
Trillion.
Wow.
Are transacted in the repo markets. It's in much need of transparency. Most other markets are very transparent, such as the equities markets or the commodities markets or currencies. But this enormous market is very opaque. And so our mission is to bring transparency to that market using, this is when it gets boring, regulatory reporting data.
Yummy.
It is actually a very, very good idea, if I say so myself. It actually wasn't my idea. Got brought into the business as a co-founder. Well, actually, I didn't get brought in. I founded it, but with 2 others, and that's where it gets a little bit boring. But it's a financial market data business. It's got huge potential for scale. Our potential clients or prospective clients are all the biggest banks, asset managers, and hedge funds, which is a marked difference to my previous career, where I was co-founder and chief revenue officer.
That was it, CRO. I was going to say it if you weren't.
Yeah,
because you were my line manager, so I remember that's drilled into my head.
I wore many hats, but it was revenue and basically sales and business development, a bit of marketing as well. And that was do you want me to go into what Pouch was?
Yeah, I think that's the main thing that people will probably know you for.
Yeah, sure. So Pouch is a free tool, a browser extension, and now a mobile app as well, actually, which automatically applies all the best valid voucher codes or coupon codes to your shopping basket. So the problem that we're trying to solve at the time and still exists today is that of shopping cart abandonment. So everyone knows when they've been on a website, you add a bunch of things to your basket, you get to the checkout page and it says, do you have a voucher code? Do you have a coupon code? And most people then leave the site, search for, Top Shop voucher code. Yeah. And there's all these endless voucher code sites. None of the, can I swear on this podcast? Yeah. None of the fucking, voucher codes work, or they're expired, or they're invalid, or they're just made up. And it just ruins this user journey. And this is a user journey that retailers spend millions and millions and millions of pounds on driving users to their website. Millions and more pounds optimizing those websites to increase conversions. And at the most important page on the site, the checkout page, you're getting something like 75% of users leaving the site No, it's not clear exactly why they're leaving. There's lots of reasons why people will abandon an e-commerce website. Sometimes it's because they weren't interested in buying, or because you know, well, whatever reasons you abandon a site. But one of the core ones is to search for voucher codes, and then how many come back. So this really like fractured user journey is bad for retailers and bad for consumers. So we built this browser extension which just literally just applies the voucher codes to the shopping basket, and the best and valid voucher codes. We also had negotiated our own voucher codes as well, our own discounts with retailers unilaterally or bilaterally with them. And so that's what we did, and it was a pretty big hit with retailers and with users.
So obviously one of the main points about Pouch is that you went on Dragon's Den.
I did.
And you didn't just go on, you got all 5 dragons
Yes.
on board, which is quite a big achievement. Not many people have that happen.
At the time, we were the second company to have done that, and there had been 15 or 16 seasons. So we certainly weren't geared up for that kind of result because it hadn't happened before. We were mainly interested in just being televised, because most pitches that happen, it's all filmed over 3 months in Manchester at BBC Studios, but most of the pitches are either not interesting enough to get televised. The only ones that do are the really good ones or the really bad ones, kind of like X Factor or something like that. So our biggest priority was like, okay, how do we get televised? Well, usually the companies that get offers get televised. We knew that we weren't going to get laughed out of the room. It was impossible. The idea was too good. We'd already got some traction. The only way that it would go badly for us is if we were really greedy with our equity demands or our valuation, which can get a lot of founders unstuck, because there is this sweet spot on that show. If you like monitor it, as we did very carefully, that if you go in at a realistic, actually not even a realistic valuation, a very low valuation, then the questions are not really about the numbers, the valuation, your margins, like anything that some founders start sweating about. And then that's when the cameras get you, because it's a 2.5-hour pitch.
Oh, is it?
And it's condensed into about 11 minutes.
Wow.
So if you fuck up once in 2.5 hours,
they'll use
that's the moment, that's the money
okay.
shot, right? So we were keen for the pitch not to be about our numbers, because at the time, whilst we had a lot of traction with retailers, we had very few users. I think we maybe had like 2,000 or 3,000 users. It was not. We'd only launched, a few months before, so we knew it wasn't going to be about that. We knew the model was good in terms of the revenue model was good, but in terms of our actual numbers, how can you say that you're worth 2 million quid if you've got like 2,000 users? Get the fuck out of here, you're assholes. And then that's what gets filmed. If we came in at a very low valuation from memory, because this was filmed about 5 years ago now. From memory, it was £75,000 for 15% of the business. We already had raised at a much higher valuation than that before.
Right. Okay. So did you go in looking for dragons, or was it a publicity?
No, it was totally publicity.
I was wondering that.
Right, yeah. Look, 85% of the deals that go through on that show never materialize.
Yeah, I've heard that.
And there's a couple of reasons why. One is that the founders that go on the show are lying about their numbers. Then the dragons and their teams look under the hood and they go, this is all bullshit. Or in what happens in most cases, you then leverage the fact you're going on Dragon's Den, because it gets filmed, but when it gets televised, it's like maybe 6 or 8 months. You then leverage that as a huge marketing coup to then raise at a much higher valuation, and then you bin the dragons off. The BBC don't care because it's all content. The dragons don't care because I don't think they're even interested in the businesses that they invest in.
Yeah.
So yeah, we knew that. Look, you guys are business people. You know that the valuations on that show are like far lower than the street. Because how are they going to be able to, in a 2-hour pitch, without seeing the product, like understand the value of the technology, understand the value of the team, understand the value of the potential, the market, whatever it is. So we just thought, look, if we're never going to take their fucking money anyway,
let's play the game.
Let's play the game. Value ourselves at like 400 grand, even though the round before we'd raised at like, I think 1.2 million or something. And then the subsequent round was like a much higher valuation than that. and just play the game. And then and I think that's one of the reasons why it worked for us, because if you look at the questions that were asked of us by the Dragons on that episode, none of them were really about the numbers. They did ask us numbers, but none of that was televised. But it was more about the vision, the team, the opportunity. Some questions around whether retailers would like a product like Pouch, because there was a big question mark over but whether a tool like Pouch can provide incremental value to retailers, because if you're providing a user a discount when they're already on the website, that's problematic, because you're just like kneecapping the retailer on their own website.
Wasn't there a company doing this in the US at the time?
So at the
Honey or
so
something?
this is the thing, right? I'm the loneliest man in the world, because firstly, I came up with the idea for Pouch completely independently of Honey, and I can come on to how I came up with it in a second. I was working in on-site optimization at a startup called Yieldify, and we were using browser extensions mainly for business information. And so, well, I'll come to that in a second. But anyway, so yeah, Honey were doing it. But back then, this is in 2016 or 2017, they had like maybe just under 1 million users. We knew this because we worked with somebody that had worked with them. We knew roughly their numbers. We knew that they were doing well. But they sold to PayPal in 2019 for $4.5 billion. We didn't.
Good night.
And we should have done, and we could have done, and we didn't. And there's a lot of reasons why we fucked up that business royally. But the opportunity was enormous, and yes, people were doing it. But it wasn't a copycat, as it were. And actually, there were certain features that were involved in our product which were far superior to theirs. One of them, which I really like, so basically, a browser extension, when a user downloads a browser extension to their laptop, you're effectively embedded on every single website they visit, right? So unlike a banner ad, say you go onto the Daily Mail and then you'll see like an ad for Topshop. Well, that's just on the Daily Mail. That ad doesn't follow you everywhere, obviously. But because we sat in the browser and we were effectively therefore integrated on every single website, we could then understand where users were shopping and what competitors of our clients or our retailers users were shopping at. So if somebody has been looking for a Lenovo laptop and they've been on Currys and they've been on, whatever tech retailers in the past like hour, that they're clearly price comparison shopping for a particular model of laptop. In which case you can just present them effectively with an ad on a competitor's site. So let's say, our client is PC World, and they are on, oh, come on, guys, name a retailer for me here.
Currys.
John Lewis.
John Lewis, right? Yeah. I used to know these like the back of my hand. But
I used to call them when I was with you.
Yeah. So let's say you're on John Lewis. Currys will pay us an enormous commission for driving a user from their competitor to their own site.
Okay.
And they would also give the consumer a massive discount for doing so. Because think about who's picking up the bill here, really. The user John Lewis has paid for the traffic to come to their site. And at the point of conversion, knowing full well what that user's about to buy, they go, by the way, Susan, we didn't know their names or anything, but, come to PC World, that same laptop is like 60 quid, 70 quid cheaper, which is by far a bigger discount than was available on the internet.
It's just genius.
Because because when you're dealing with high value, relatively low margin products like technology products, stealing market share is a key performance indicator. It's a fundamental KPI. So if you can prove that you're literally like robbing your own competitor of a sale, and you're incentivizing the customer with a very good discount, and you're paying your affiliates really well, like that is a deal that works for everyone apart from who gives a fuck John Lewis.
Yeah.
So that's a feature that was very, very, very controversial, because that is like gloves off in terms of marketing. That's like truly guerrilla shit marketing. And lots of retailers were very
I remember
upset about it at the time, because they were thinking, well, this is now just going to cause this horrible spiral into just like a mess online of people just, just like screwing everyone's margins. But then they really kind of changed their tune when it came to Black Friday or Christmas or Cyber Monday or, but so that's like, we had lots of ambition to really make that programmatic. At the time, and you'll remember those kind of campaigns were very manual and bespoke. So it would be, work just for a few products across a few competitors. But really, this could have been a very programmatic thing, and therefore, like, effectively a new channel. Like, how do you even name stealing a sale from a competitor? I mean, there's not even a word for that. We were kind of trying to invent that, and we did invent it, but it just never took off for a variety of reasons. But yeah, so anyway, Honey did exist, but they only really started to get traction as we were much smaller. They were still very big. Then they got the big VC deal. Then they pumped tons of money. Then they got like hundreds of millions of, I think they were at their biggest, maybe like 80 million users. But if you think 80 million users are transacting most of their e-commerce activity through your platform, and you're making like average 6-7% commissions off that, no wonder they sold to PayPal for $4.5 billion. So it was a great idea. We were it could have been excellent. But yeah, it wasn't a copycat. There were lots of copycats after.
Yeah.
Especially when we went on Dragons Den, and everyone was doing it.
And just before we kind of go on to that then in more detail in terms of the sort of day-to-day running of the business, can you just take us back to the start, if you like? You told us a bit about how you came up with the idea and how it was sort of formulated, but in terms of taking that first step from having the idea to actually putting an MVP together, or minimum viable products, like what was the first few steps in terms of setting up the business?
Well, so I joined a startup called Yieldify as the third or fourth employee, and it was a really simple idea. You'll hate it because you've experienced it a million times, but it was a small piece of JavaScript which gets implemented on a website, all e-commerce retailers, say Marks and Spencer's or John Lewis, and it could then monitor the user's mouse movements, their speed and their behavior, and determine when the user's about to leave the site. And then you based on the trajectory of the mouse movement towards certain exit points, and then a pop-up would appear. We call them overlays, never say pop-ups. I was a sales guy then.
Industry secret there, guys.
And then, but more importantly, the content of the pop-up or the overlay would change depending on where a user had come from. So what website had driven them there, or how many times they visited, or what was in the basket, or the value of the basket. And so it was... you certainly wouldn't call it artificial intelligence because it was all very manual, but it was intelligent. And the idea was to decrease website abandonment or shopping cart abandonment. So you're about to leave the site and you said, hey, continue to stay and get 10% off, or give us your email and get 11% off, or whatever it is. And it was really popular. Every retailer was using it, and it did work. But what was really great is the revenue model. So anytime a user would click to stay, so interact with this pop-up, a cookie would drop, an affiliate cookie would drop. And then when the user went on to make a successful purchase, Yieldify, the company, would make a commission. This could be like 10, sometimes 20% of the overall basket value. So it was a license to print money, because once you get embedded on Marks and Spencer's, you have about 10 or 20 million overlays a month.
Yeah.
And if 20% of people are clicking on them, and you're making 10%, do the math. You just for one client, you're making all this money.
You're piggybacking off their traffic as well.
Yeah. Beautiful. And it was just, and so it just scaled like massively. I was the third or fourth employee. Within a year and a half, there was 200 people.
Wow.
Google Ventures and SoftBank put $11.5 million as a Series A into it. It was the first European investment Google ever made.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was just an absolute rocket ship. So that was, firstly, to answer your question, it was a great place to learn about startups, because, my boss was like 30, or I think he was even 29 or something. And it was just, everyone was making loads of money. It was loads of fun. Everyone was young, and retailers liked it and stuff. It then, I don't know if I'm even allowed to say this.
We can cut it if we need.
Okay.
But say it now.
But say it.
Basically, what happened, I had actually got headhunted to go to Singapore. But then it was the darling of the UK tech scene. It was the fastest growing startup in Europe. And then there was this massive lawsuit because it turned out a lot of the underlying source code had been allegedly lifted from a US competitor. And, you know, the US are quite litigious people, Americans. And then I think a lot of the funding dried up, and it still exists as a business. It still does well, but I don't think it ever reached what it was supposed to. But anyway, I'm sitting there as a sales guy going, well, the challenge at Yieldify was getting this JavaScript onto the retailer's site. It was a small lift from an engineering perspective. It would take, you know, a Marks and Spencer's coder like 2 minutes to implement it. But if you know anything about tech companies, they've got these backlogs that can last 2 years. Like even if it takes 2 minutes, it's like, well, you're still at the back of the queue. Like one of my clients was Tesco groceries. It took 2 years to get JavaScript implemented. So that's a huge challenge, a big bottleneck for growth, because you need to basically wait for the retailers to do it. But it's like, well, how can you do the same thing, but without having to get the retailers to do any engineering work? And then the idea struck me, well, you should do a browser extension. We'd been using browser extensions already. So for instance, there was one called SimilarWeb, and you could click on it and you can see, you could determine the popularity of a website, because obviously, whilst there's the big websites, you also want to, as a sales guy, identify, okay, anyone that has more than 50,000 users a month is now like a target for our business. So that's why it was important for our day-to-day jobs to have this browser extension. So I was familiar with that. Well, if I click on this, then all this content comes up, and like the website owner doesn't know that this is even happening. And also, you know, when I said that when these users click on these call to actions, these buttons on the pop-ups, and then it drops a cookie, that's what's called affiliate marketing. This is like an age-old industry. So all you need to do is apply to a retailer's affiliate program. There's no like negotiation. You don't have to go to their offices and sit down. There's no paperwork. You just go, well, we're a browser extension. We're doing this. Can we join your affiliate program? And like 9 times out of 10, they just automatically accept you.
Yeah.
So that's how we were able to get like 2.5, when we did do Pouch, 2,500 retailers, like more or less overnight. So I was like, okay, well, the affiliate marketing infrastructure makes it very easy to get contractual relationships with retailers. The browser extensions makes it very easy to get across all retailers in terms of the content. Then it becomes a B2C challenge rather than a B2B challenge. So Yieldify was a B2B challenge. Our thing was like, well, we can be on every website, but we don't have any users. So I had this idea and I knew it could work, but I'm not an engineer. And so I took it to my mate, Johnny Plain, who's one of the other co-founders of Pouch. And we kicked around, you know, the idea, putting a business plan together. What we initially were going to, you know, try to raise money, and then from that money, try to hire some developers to build it. And one of those developers was a guy called Vic. And when we met him, he was like, firstly, you can't afford me. So what are we having this conversation for?
Yeah.
And he was like, but look, I love the idea and I want to join you as an equal co-founder and as the CTO. And then that was great because we didn't have to raise any money before we built a product. And that's really important. And if anyone's thinking about, you know, particularly building a tech business, and you don't have any tech talent yourself, bringing on somebody to your mission and getting them to build it with you. And then once you can workshop a proof of concept or a minimum viable product, then you can take it to investors, and then you can raise more money at a much better valuation. If we have to give away 20% of our equity up front for cash to pay for an engineer, in retrospect, that would have been a fucking stupid idea to do that. And usually is a stupid idea to do that. You know, but then getting developers to, you know, he had a 3-year-old daughter and a wife. It's a hard sell, but that was his problem. He had to make that.
Just get it made.
He had to make that sell to his wife.
Just touching on that, if I can. Obviously, as you said, you approached Johnny with it first, and you were school friends. That's something we've touched on before. In our last episode, we had the founders of Furniture Box, and they were friends from school, and we asked them the same question. But what was it like for you approaching someone who was quite a good friend about a business idea? Because obviously that can go either way. And were you hesitant already, or how did that feel?
No, so Johnny and I were one of those friends that just talked about business all the time.
Right.
I've known him since I was 13, and it's like he was probably my only friend that I did that with, more or less. We just always had. He always had an idea. I always had an idea. We never actually did anything with our ideas, which is it's still fun to have those conversations, right?
That was kind of like what we used to.
I was going to say that sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Right, but then eventually, when you do have an idea and it gels and the timing's right, then who's then that person you naturally go to?
Yeah,
right.
Subscribe to the Ground Floor.
There you go. And so, look, when he was at Nottingham University, I was at Leeds, and we came close to doing one which would have been like, it was basically Lad Bible, but before Lad Bible. How do you get the university experience? Anyway, I can't be able to get into that, but it could have worked. I was actually, the reason we didn't pursue that is I was doing a different startup at university, which would have been more of like an Uber Eats thing. Turns out it's quite expensive to do that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so it wasn't awkward coming to Johnny. And look, I knew it was a good idea. I absolutely knew it was going to work. It had to, because it was, as I've just explained, all the pieces were there.
Yeah.
It was just a case of building it and funding it, and he got very excited very quickly about it. And then we really got to work. He's a chartered accountant. So he had a very important skill set that I did not possess. I mean, managing my own personal finances is challenging, let alone, managing a business, which can get complicated. But then the obvious piece that was missing was the CTO, and that sort of it kind of fell into our lap. But yeah, it wasn't difficult getting Johnny on board whatsoever.
Mm.
And importantly, I say this to people founding businesses all the time, it's like, especially if you're at that very early stage and somebody is offering you a skill set that you don't possess and it's vital to the success of the business, then it's much better just be equal.
Yeah.
So the three co-founders all had exactly equal equity. God forbid I said, well, it's my idea, so I think I should get like 4% more. Or like, well, I'm the tech guy, I'm the one building it, I think I should get 3% more. And then it's like, off the bat, it's unequal.
Yeah.
For like 3%. And some people do get like that about points. And it's the wrong time to do that. That's for like other people.
Yeah.
That's like after you're
creates an awkward dynamic as well, doesn't it, from day one?
Yeah. And then what happens is, further down the line, if somebody has less skin in the game, it's like, well, I'm not working to make you rich.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, well, no, we're all equal. We're all contributing equally. And what also you'll find is that in a founding team, particularly if there's three co-founders, actually that's not true, it could be any number, including two, is that depending on the business, the importance of the role fluctuates.
Yeah.
So when we were building the product, obviously the developer role was really important. Sales took a backseat because we didn't have anything to sell.
Yeah.
And then raising money was really important. That's where the CFO really comes in, arranging meetings with like every fucking investor in the world and making sure the pitch deck is on point. And, and so there'll be some times where it's like clearer who is adding the most quote unquote value, but it all comes out in the wash over time. And so that's why it's important to have the foresight to go, yeah, you might be adding the most value now, but believe me, these guys are going to carry you later.
Yeah.
The question that I think a lot of people wonder when it comes to early businesses, and this is the thing that I'm always most excited about, which is that so you've built the product now, it's up and running. How do you get your first few installs? How do you go from just, you've got this thing, no one in the world knows about it, and then as you said, by the time you got to Dragon's Den, I think you said you had about 2,000 users by that point?
Sure, yeah.
So how do you get those first people? That's the most exciting part, I think, for me.
So obviously it really depends on the business. So if we just take an application or a browser extension or something, it's going to be different to like if you make ice cream or something, get that distribution, even early distribution is different. But if you take something that can be, consumed like a technology product, our journey was different in that we got on an accelerator program called Mass Challenge.
For anyone listening at home that doesn't know, can you explain what an accelerator program is?
An accelerator program is a program whereby, so there's lots of different types. Usually it can be a physical space where you get free office space, free guidance, free legal advice, free accounting, maybe some money as well. And it's really a structured environment designed to help early stage startups get past that early stage, hence accelerate.
And do they take a percentage for this?
Well, Mass Challenge didn't.
Right.
Mass Challenge was, and it stopped for a while. It may be coming back, but it was a great accelerator program. They took 100 cohorts, 100 companies. It was all in the tobacco docks in Shadwell, an excellent space. And it was all sponsored by Microsoft and Amazon and all these big legal firms. So the idea was, it was a very strenuous application process. But if you became one of the 100 startups, you had free office space for 3 months. And then at the end of 3 months, there was a competition. They picked the top 10, and then those 10 got prize money and office space for the next year.
Okay.
And we did that, and we got the top 10 as well.
Amazing.
But we were able to, because we were in a community of 100 startups, and we had our own personal social networks, getting to 2000 actually wasn't too difficult for us, because we just asked people. When you go into one of these accelerator programs, there's a big community feel. Unless you're direct competitors, it's just so much love. Everyone just wants everyone to succeed, help out where they can. We were having voucher codes for businesses that had 8 users. I don't think we ever made any money.
Yeah.
And so it was hey, can you promote this thing for us? Can you use this? So getting to that was more just an immediate network, getting to that number of users. Obviously the bigger challenge is, how do you do that scale? That's not scalable.
Yeah, because I think my question with that would be, if you're approaching people, let's say, as you said, other businesses in the same space that you're working in, they're obviously not necessarily going to be your target customer, or who's actually going to make the most use out of the product. And I think that's something where, if you compare it to, say, let's say social media, it's the equivalent to, buying followers, where technically it's a follower on your profile, but they're not, necessarily into country music or knitting or whatever.
Well, see, this is, again, it's difficult, because we were very fortunate in that everyone could use Pouch, because everyone buys online.
Yeah.
So it was a tool for everyone.
Yeah.
And so, but we're the exception that proves that rule. You're right. Just getting somebody to download your gaming app and then not a gamer.
Yeah.
Then it's not good feedback. It's not really a user. And it is the equivalent to just buying a user. But for us, it was different, because if you buy online, which, believe me, every entrepreneur does,
Yeah.
then it is immediate user feedback. But yeah, I mean, to your point, if I was listening to this and I did have a product that was consumed by everyone, I think it's important to obviously identify who your target customer is. And that's not always very clear. I mean, if I use, again, Pouch as an example, so one of the biggest mistakes we made early on, once we did raise money, I think that the first amount of money we raised was relatively small. I think we raised just under 100,000. And that was mainly used to build out the product some more, and get product market fit, and acquire some users. We really spent a lot of the money earmarked for user acquisition or marketing on the wrong audience type. We went all in on students, because we thought,
who wants to save money?
The thinking was, students don't want to save money. Students are very discount focused. That'll be a cheaper audience, a cheaper type of user to acquire. Cheaper meaning the literal cost per acquisition is lower than other user groups. And so we're going to do a campaign with Student Money Saver. We're going to be in all these student blogs. We're going to reach out to student influencers, whatever. And we were right in that you could acquire a lot of students, but as soon as they have any fucking money, that's the problem. So as I don't want to use too many acronyms, LTV, the lifetime value of a customer, is dog shit, because they don't buy anything. So so then what we discovered, having made that mistake, is you can then look at, all right, who are our users? We then took not a scattergun approach. We try to get sufficient number of users in every type of cohort, and then monitor their activity. And what shouldn't be, in hindsight, is very obvious to me, but was very surprising at the time, is that the optimal audience were mothers, because mothers have the purse strings in a household. They buy most of the presents and gifts for family. They pay for children. They often pay for household gifts, appliances, and importantly, groceries. So actually, the average order value and total annual spend of a mother is far higher, obviously, than a student. And so we then started focusing a lot of our attention on mummy blogs and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But that was an immediate data feedback.
I'm with you.
And so, but yeah, to your point, it's hard to know. That's a lesson that was expensive to learn based on data once we had money. What do you do in your example, to somebody that's just starting with a product? How do you get those first few users? Sometimes you have to do things that don't scale. I'm pretty sure the guy at Airbnb said that, right? You just have to, it's not think about the cost of acquisition, because the cost of acquiring a customer when you're a brand new startup is not reflective of how it's going to be later. So really consider that budget as a learning budget. It literally is just testing who your ideal audience is. And so forget about how much it costs to get them. It's like, get them in the room, get their feedback. These are the people that you think are going to use it. Then maybe experiment with people that, maybe you don't. It's hard to know without using a specific example, but really it's just experimentation. And then you can make really informed decisions. Had we done that experimentation early on, we would have saved most of our seed money.
It's like you say, it's an expensive lesson to learn, but still really priceless, right?
How long did it actually take to get the extension up and running, from sort of speaking to Vic and being like, all right, this is what we want to do, to kind of getting it off the ground?
Pretty quickly. Bearing in mind, he wasn't full time on it. None of us were full time on it at the beginning. So he probably could have done the first proof of concept in like a month of full time work,
right?
Probably, but I think it took about 5 months.
Right. Okay. Going back to Dragon's Den, how did that even come about? Because I think a lot of people will go, how do you even get on Dragon's Den? Is it just a straightforward application process? You have to know someone, do you have to play the game like with X Factor, like I better have a story ready? So
the BBC got in touch with me.
Right.
So I got a call or an email saying, I'm such and such producer from BBC's Dragon's Den. We think you'd make good candidates for an audition for the show. You actually audition first and then you go. And it's actually, the application process is quite lengthy. But I then found out how he found out about us, because we were absolute press whores. Would be in absolutely anything and everything.
Yeah.
Can I actually just take a quick second here? Because you dropped an absolute gold nugget when we were having one of our legendary 6 a.m. conversations about a month ago. And it was such genius that I thought I have to remember to mention on the podcast. Can you please go into what you did with the guy who was writing the articles?
Oh, yeah.
This is honestly, this is amazing.
I haven't had this.
This is such a beautiful little golden.
Wait, I think we were talking about the same thing. Okay, so
just because you said about being press whores and that came straight back, I have to make him say that.
So startups.co.uk is the industry magazine publication for startups, and every month or every week they'll have a spotlight, a founder spotlight or a startup spotlight, and it's always the same questions, right? Whatever the questions were, who gives a shit, right? There's like 10 questions, they're always the same. And I also happen to know that journalists, by and large, are very lazy. Or maybe I shouldn't say lazy. They have so many deadlines and so much shit they have to churn out now because of the state of journalism in this country and abroad, that if you can write an article for them, you've just like made their day. So this same journalist was writing the same article like every single week, and so I was just like, and it was over Christmas time, so I was just like, look, you don't know me, I'm founder of Pouch, I've answered all your questions, here you go. And she was like, cheers, thanks so much. And then like the next day we were like the spotlight on Startups UK.
Yeah.
And then the BBC guy was like, "Oh, I found out about you from Startup UK."
How great is that?
That's a good piece of advice.
Solve a problem. Do their job for them.
Yeah.
Make it easy for them.
And I would
all
say
she had to do was just push a button at that point.
Yeah, that's literally. I think that's all she did do, and I think she, I had this image in my head of her getting stressed over the holidays and this like email coming in and
Yeah.
oh, thank God, but we did a lot of things like that. We did all of our own PR.
Yeah.
And we some of it didn't scale, but some of it really did. There was this great resource, and I'm pretty sure it's still around, called Response Source, whereby most journalists will, if they're writing about a topic, will just on this platform will say, from the Daily Mirror, and I'm writing about money saving tips, right? And then just puts it out there. And then usually PR companies who pay for this service, who represent, what was that Martin Lewis thing called?
Money Week?
Whatever.
Money Week, something, I think. I don't know.
Let's say, represents Honey or whatever. Then the PR guy will go, "Oh, great, yeah, we'll participate in your article if you need an interview or you need, a quote or something like that." And so we just did that all the time because we managed to shoehorn Pouch into any topic. I mean, I was literally talking about Brexit in some cases, like, whatever, like Founders, Brexit, anything that linked back to our website and optimized our website to conversion. I was like, if you put a fucking link on this article, I'll do whatever you want, And so that we were in lots of different things. We were in, but we also, what we managed to do is, again, shoehorn ourselves into places we didn't have much business. So obviously money saving tips is like straight in our wheelhouse. E-commerce data, what kind of like shopping behaviors, kind of in our wheelhouse as well. Then like fashion. Well, we work with fashion retailers and like, according to Pouch, this summer collection is that kind of shit, anything, And I think it became one of those things where we were just in so much stuff, and I'm sure it drove everyone crazy as well. Like their LinkedIn's just got clogged up with all of our bullshit. But I do think that all helps, and it's all free as well. You don't have to do anything to do that. And helping out journalists and then being the go-to person then is a feedback loop whereby they get in touch with you and
And so after actually we were talking about the run up to Dragon's Den and then we got sidetracked in the press, but you said so the BBC approached you off the back of startups article. So what did they say and how did that happen?
So they said we think you'd make good candidates. Can we send you this application form for you to fill in? So I think they obviously get a lot of inbounds, a lot of applicants, but then the producers also identify, companies they think would work well on the show as well. And so I did not want to explore Dragon's Den. This is all Johnny Plains,
right.
I just thought, as bad as it sounds, it's like the X factor of entrepreneurs. Who gives a shit? We should be focusing so much more of our energy on what we're doing. This seems like a massive time sink. But because they approached us, because Johnny did talk about applying and stuff, but because they approached us, it seemed like maybe there's something there. So then we did the application, and they said they had told us they'd probably get back to us in a couple of months. They got back to us the next day. So we're like, okay, we're really onto a winner here. Then we had to fill out much more paperwork because they need to confirm that you're not charlatans.
Yeah, of course.
So they actually need to see your books, they need to see your run rate, your revenues, your users, all this stuff, legals. And then there is that kind of due diligence process, which did take a bit of time. But we knew we'd pass that. And then they invited us into White City, the BBC studios there, and where we did a practice pitch in front of cameras. And again, we were told it's going to take a long time. They approved us more or less immediately within a couple of days with a film date. And then that was horrifying to me because I hate public speaking. I couldn't imagine anything worse than going on Dragon's Den and being that like sweaty asshole that can't remember the difference between net profit and
Really appreciate you doing this, by the way, man.
and so that was really so. What we then did was we hired a Dragon's Den coach.
Did you?
Yes. Okay. So there's this woman in like
that is such a niche
I know,
career.
But you think about it,
fair enough. I mean,
it's a niche career, but my God, she's cornered it.
Yeah.
Like, so I don't know. I think it was Old Street or somewhere we went, but the Dragon's Den, Dragon's Den entrepreneurs become their own community. So I knew people that had been on it. And then I approached them for their advice.
Yeah.
And loads of people have approached me for advice subsequently. Sam from what's it called? What's that new? Generate Ads, which he did really well. We got this woman to kind of. It was mainly for me. It was mainly for my confidence, because Johnny can speak in front of anyone. How to time your walk as you go in, what to do with your hands, because like even on the show, I don't know if you've seen the episode in a while, but like the camera guys keep focusing on my
yeah.
Like on some fucking coked up maniac. And how to pace yourself and that. So we just practice and practice and practice and practice and practice. And then the whole thing, the entire business became geared up for smashing this Dragon's Den episode and then milking that whole thing for all it's worth and putting every ad dollar or pound into as seen on Dragon's Den, So that was the whole push. Like this, it became make or break. We didn't spend any money. When we got the film date for Dragon's Den, we didn't spend a single penny on anything other than just operating costs.
Yeah.
Because we were like, well, £1 spent now is like going to be worth £10 once this airs,
we've been on Dragon's
if it goes well. So like we'll just need to save our money. And so
And so afterwards, did you notice a big sort of shift?
Well,
or did you not?
After it was televised?
Yeah, after it launched, was there a big uptick in sort of overall, I don't know, either both user generation and
there was.
publicity?
The biggest shame was that we were only desktop. We were not on mobile.
What?
Right.
Was that kind of, you can't really have a mobile browser extension. The browser extension only really suits desktop.
Yeah.
We hadn't built a mobile application. We could have built an app, but it was too early.
Yeah.
And so when you look at the numbers, we had it was televised twice over 1 week. On the night it was first televised on BBC One, we actually got the last spot, which is the best spot. That's like the 15-minute end of the episode slot before the lead into whatever else was on. And at any one time throughout the 15 minutes that we were on, there was 180,000 people on the site.
Wow.
At any one time. So I think I can't remember. I think we had something like 400,000 hits.
Wow.
Just on that one evening.
Yeah.
And actually a lot of engineering work went into making sure that we could
handle that traffic.
That we could handle that traffic.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm talking about it like it was back in the old days. This is 2017, but things like servers and cloud infrastructure have changed dramatically since then. That was a real concern that we would able to handle this traffic, which we did, and Rick did a brilliant job. We had this massive party with all our family and friends, and he couldn't come because he had to be with the other tech guys, making sure the whole thing didn't fall apart. But we did see a big uptick. But to my point about mobile, like 90% of the traffic was mobile.
Okay.
Because you think about it from a viewer's perspective. You're sitting on the couch, just watching Dragon's Den thing. You're on your phone. Type in pouch. Oh, you can't. So what we had done is on the mobile site, there was a mobile application coming soon. Please leave your email address. And we did get like tens and tens and tens and tens of thousands of email addresses, which we were able to then utilize later. But it was a huge lost or missed opportunity that we didn't have that. But we still look. I think we got something like 80,000 users or something
Wow,
directly
okay.
from that
Yeah.
show.
Wow.
Which was massive considering we had like 3,000 before.
Yeah, of course.
And then we were able to, and then then it got re-aired a couple more times, and it was like aired in Nigeria once, and it was aired somewhere else on the BBC World Service. So we kind of had like weird pockets of international traffic. But the most frustrating thing, and I still talk to my therapist about it, is YouTube wouldn't let us keep it on YouTube.
Really?
Oh.
It was so annoying because it was
Copyright.
like without sounding arrogant, it was the most amazing episode.
Yeah.
5 dragons. All the comments were like, "This is incredible," and it was brilliant. It was just absolutely perfect. It couldn't have gone better. And every time we uploaded it, it got taken down after like a few days. But even when it was up, it was like got to like 200,000 or 300,000 views, and then it was down.
Oh man.
And what was most annoying about it is that loads of other people, the BBC Dragon's Den channel was uploading everyone else's, but not ours. And so the people that had kind of like okay pictures were already at like 2-3 million views.
Yeah.
And we're sitting there going, "Oh my God, this is a nightmare." Because
that would drive me insane.
Because YouTube at that time had like a 60-40 split. It was mostly desktop traffic.
Right.
So we knew that like anyone watching that is going to be downloading Pouch. Like I reckon we do an 80% conversion rate on that kind of traffic. And it was just, I'll still not get over it. Like, and then by the time it went up, it was too late. It had already kind of petered out by then.
To bring you onto a
Sorry, I got really upset.
No, it's good. It's good.
Still sore.
That would drive me up the wall. But to move on to a more positive note, and also just because I'm conscious of time, I want to jump. I don't want to dump live on air, but I want to jump into your exit, because I think that's a cool thing for people to understand. So just sort of.
Well, actually, it's not that positive of a story.
I know, but for the viewers,
for someone like me and the viewers who doesn't know the story, what was the kind of lead up?
I know it's a sore spot, but
so
what happened?
Look, okay, fine. I was an entrepreneur that sold a business for loads of money. I'm not complaining, but it could have been sold for a lot more money. And here's the problem: we joined another accelerator, and I'll be quick. How much time have we got? Yeah.
Got about like 8 minutes.
So,
we got about 8 minutes. We got the final question to do, but we'll be fine.
So News UK, Rupert Murdoch, Rebecca Brooks, 2 of the worst people in the world, had this accelerator program called News UK Startups or something. I forget what it's called. And they identified 3 startups that they wanted to bring into News UK to see if they could add value to their various digital assets. Pouch was one of them. Another one was the guys that do the energy comparison stuff, Look After My Bills, who exited and did really well, and some other company. And the idea was we were going to be in the News UK building just down the road from here, and we were going to work with them for 6 weeks. And we were working on the Sun promotions team. You know how they got like that bingo shit and they got all the codes and all that stuff. And it was a really well-suited business. And at the end of it, they were going to give us 2 million quid, right? And not only that, but they were going to promote the shit out of Pouch on the front pages of the Sun. The Sun at the time was bigger than the Daily Mail. It's the most widely read digital newspaper in Europe. So it was like, this is how we're going to explode, right? Yeah. So we'd already been on Dragon's Den. We'd already got some traction. We knew it was working. And we said no to every venture capitalist that was after us. And we were not raising money because we were all in on Rupert Murdoch. And so
risky game.
And so what happened was 6 weeks go past. And we're working, when I say when we're collaborating with them, I mean every single day we're working with their team. We know all of them. And we had meeting after meeting after meeting with Rebecca Brooks, with the Chief Commercial Officer of News UK, which is the Sun and Sky and one of the other ones, not the Times, and all of the CFO, and we did a board meeting after board meeting, and it just went on for weeks and weeks and weeks and months, and we're still working out their building for 6 months and hadn't been given the money, right? And we proved it worked with all of their various digital assets, and everybody loved us. And most importantly, we'd stopped spending any money on user acquisition, so we weren't growing because we didn't need to, because we were going to have this whole Sun thing. And then we started running out of money because we had a staff of like 11 people, and then we had to start making layoffs. And then
Shout out me.
yeah, Ollie over here was one of them. And so yeah, we didn't get
moving
into
on.
that, yeah. And so anyway, and then at the end of it, they go, guys, we're not investing in any of the startups, and I'm really sorry. So now, who's going to want to invest in a company that hasn't grown in 6 months?
Yeah.
Who wants to hear that story? And we've now, like, I had to go back to pay myself absolutely fuck all. So did Johnny. So did Vic. And we had to let go of almost everyone at the company. And it was like, what just happened? It was like the most shell-shocking thing. You couldn't believe that that they just pulled out of this deal. And thankfully, the Daily Mail got wind of the fact that the Sun was working with us, and they effectively bought us.
The Daily Mail, okay.
Yeah, they bought. There's a company called Global Savings Group, and the Daily Mail was their biggest client. And the Daily Mail was like, "Hey, we like these guys." So Global Savings Group.
Okay, so they broke
based in
the
Munich.
sale almost.
Yes, kind of, yeah. And so when we flew out to Munich and we did some due diligence with them, very nice guys. But by the end of it, honestly, we were exhausted. We'd fallen out, and we were sick of being poor, and we just sold. And then that's basically how the exit happened. I mean, maybe Johnny and Vic see it differently. But I know they pretty much feel the same way.
Yeah.
So basically, it was a great exit, and it was a cash exit, and we got really good salaries working at Global Savings Group. But it wasn't like what it could have been. It wasn't the Sun thing, and it wasn't the honey exit.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's clearly. Well, it's bitter.
I can understand why. I understand why. I mean,
the way I've explained it, you can see why. Like,
no, I can. Yeah.
It's supposed to be like using the Sun as this rocket ship to like flog this amazing product to like the masses, and instead it was like you ran out of money and you can't even get VC money now, and we was like, fine, just buy us.
Well, on that cheerful
tune in next time.
Hey, mate, you wanted honesty, right?
No, we love it. We love it, man. Wouldn't change it for the world. We're gonna round off now, but there's one question that we ask all of our guests, which obviously, as you know, the point of this podcast is to focus on the early stages of business, the practical steps, not the kind of sort of airy-fairy stuff like the believe in yourself, work hard kind of stuff. So we ask every guest that we have on, we basically say, if you could give one piece of practical advice to anyone who might be looking to build their own thing, start their own project, or start a business, whatever it might be, what's one piece of practical, actionable advice that you could give?
Whether you just determine this as practical or not, I truly believe in getting a co-founder. And if not one, two. All the data suggests that sole founders are like far more likely to fail. And or to put another way, companies with more than one founder, I think the sweet spot is usually three co-founders, far more likely to succeed. The reason is obvious, not just that you have different skill sets, so you're bigger than the sum of your parts, which is of course true, but it's an incredibly emotional thing to start a business. It's incredibly creative and exciting and exhilarating and potentially profitable and all these things, but it's very emotional. Some days you don't want to get out of bed, some days you're sick of doing it, and then that's when you need your other co-founder to be like, let's do it. So that's a practical thing. That truly is fine. It might cost you half your equity, but it will like more than double your chances of success. And so I think maybe if you're a sole trader or something, a painter and decorator, you don't need a co-founder. But I think most people need that emotional support. You also want to share the journey with somebody. Like, one thing you'll notice is nobody gives a fuck about your company. Like, really, nobody cares that much. You might pretend to care at a barbecue, but like that's about it. And so, like, to get yourself motivated when you're constantly being rejected, which you will every day at the beginning, you need someone to go, oh yeah, but they're idiots, they don't get it, and maybe they are idiots, so they don't get it. So I just think, even if you think you got everything right, and and you're the smartest guy in the world, and you've got product market fit, and you've done your business plan, and maybe you get a co-founder. That's what I would say.
I think that's
really good advice.
I think that's an amazing piece of advice.
Yeah,
and I personally experienced that when I started doing music. I approached one of my best friends and I was like, I'm an artist. I'm not organized. I don't have the admin kind of stuff together. I need a manager, and I feel like you're the person to do that. And I could not have done that whole journey without him. I couldn't have done it. So I really rang true.
And it makes it more enjoyable. The
So
journey.
much
Definitely.
more.
I
mean,
The
that's
hard
that's
parts.
the key part of it.
Yeah.
You gotta have fun with this.
Yeah, of
Otherwise,
course.
what's the
Yeah,
point?
Totally. And as you said, in the low moments where you might be doubting yourself, you have someone that's like, look, I believe in this thing. I believe in what you're doing. We're going to do it. And in the high moments, you have someone to be like, dude, we fucking did it. Like, I think that's such a great piece of advice. Thanks for that. That's really amazing.
Right.
Thanks for an amazing conversation. I mean, that's.
God, I can't believe that's an hour. Wow.
I know it flew. I want to go on for longer. We'll have to get you back. We'll have to get you back on another time.
Hey, anytime, guys.
And talk about London Reporting House. Before we go, do you want to talk about anything you got going on at the moment, or anything you might want to plug or spread?
Not really. No, I mean we're launching London Reporting House in sort of late Jan, early Feb. But unless you are a repo trader, you're not going to care.
Yeah.
And I doubt your audience are repo traders. I don't think they're entrepreneurs.
Right. Yeah. Well,
so no, I'm just here to be here for you, just meet you guys. Well, not meet you guys. Spend some time with you guys, and hopefully help out to anyone listening.
Yeah.
No plugs on this.
Oh, what a wholesome guy.
Yeah, I know. He's
What
just
a
here
nice
to add
guy.
value. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, mate, obviously, you're one of my best friends. I'm so glad to have you. It's been
Thanks
so
for having
awesome.
me.
No, it's been a pleasure.
Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. What an amazing episode. So much value in that. I'm going to have to go over that a million times and pick everything out. If you enjoyed it, make sure to hit subscribe, turn on the notification bell so that you never miss any content. We've got content coming out all the time, and we've got a new episode with a brand new guest coming out every single week. So make sure you subscribe, rate us and review us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and we'll see you in the next episode. Take care, guys.